Okay, so for the first part, it says classify the triangle by its angles and by its sides. So before we do that for the specific triangles, let's talk about our options for classifying triangles by their angles. So what are our words that we can use? How can we classify a triangle by the angles? What? Right triangle? What else? Obtuse triangle? Acute? Okay, let's go to sides. That would be isosceles. What else? Scalene, what does that go under? Sides, right? Okay, what other side classification can we have? Yeah. Okay. Equilateral. That's right, there is an equiangular. Okay, so if it is a right triangle, that means that it has one right angle or a 90-degree angle. If it's obtuse, it has one obtuse angle. If it's acute, it has all three angles acute. It has to be all three, no other options. And equiangular, what does that mean? All three angles are equal, okay? Then if we talk about the sides, what does isosceles mean?
Two sides are the same.
Two sides or more, right? It says at least two sides. So this means that 2 plus or 2 or more sides are equal. What about scalene? What's that? No sides are equal. So we have 0 sides congruent. And what about equilateral?
All the same.
All the same. So we have 3 congruent sides. Okay, so using this knowledge, if we want to classify triangle number 1 by its angles, what would it be? Right. Can only be right because of the 90-degree angle. Okay. And what about the sides? Scalene, because they are all different. How about number 2, by its angles? Obtuse, because of the 101 is greater than 90. And how about the sides? Isosceles, because we have 2 sides that are congruent. Now, is this triangle that's isosceles also equilateral? No, because not all 3 sides are equal. But if it was equilateral, would it also be isosceles? Yes, because if it has 3 sides congruent, then it also has 2 sides congruent. Okay, so now let's find the value of x. Okay, what do you know about the degrees in a triangle? You guys should have known this for a long time. How many degrees are in any triangle? 180 degrees. (180 degrees in a triangle. So, because we're given the 2 angle measures in here, it's very easy to just say 180 degrees in the triangle, we can subtract 65, we can subtract 32, and we end up with how many degrees? 83 degrees? If you are a person who likes equations, because we will need this for, I believe it's number 5, you can set up an equation and say, okay, well 32 plus 65 plus x equals 180 degrees. And then in order to solve that, you are going to subtract 32 and you are going to subtract 65. Gentlemen, with me? Okay. Number 4, again, 180, you're going to take out the 90 because of this right angle right here. You're going to take out the 42, and you should have 48 degrees left. Again, you can write an equation for that as well. Questions on 3 or 4? Okay, number 5, you can't just take 180 and subtract everything. So on this one, we for sure need an equation. So if we add all of these things together, we get 36 plus 8x plus 8x should give us a total of 180. If you combine like terms, the 8x plus 8x, you get 36 plus 16x equals 180. If you subtract 36 from both sides, you get 144. And if you divide by 16, you get, what'd you guys get for that? 9? Questions on that one? Bless you. Okay, now number 6. Number 6 is the first of any new material. However, even if you didn't know the new rule, you could have done this anyway, okay? So let's just take a look at this triangle and what we already know. We know that this angle is 90, we know that this angle is 40, and we know that there are 180 degrees in a triangle. So what does that mean for this angle? What does it have to measure? No? The green angle here? Yes, the box is 90. How much does that green angle have to measure? 50, because there are 180 degrees in a triangle, right? Then, if you look here, because they want the value of x, those two angles create a what? What is that called? A line, which means that the angles are a. They're supplementary, which means that their special angle pair name is a linear pair, right? So what is the value of x? So what does x have to be? 130, right? So that they add up to be 180 degrees. Okay, so on your exploration yesterday, it said, how does that exterior angle or the outside angle relate to the other angles in the triangle? Well, we know that it's supplementary to 50 because those are a linear pair. But what about these two angles? How does it relate? That's right, they're the same when you add them together. So if I did 90 plus 40, I get this 130. That's the rule that you should have discovered. But you didn't have to have that in order to do this problem, because you can use some prior knowledge. All right, so let's look at number 7.
So the answer was what, 130?
Yes. Looking at number 7, this angle has to be equal to these two angles together. Those add together to give you that exterior angle. So 27 plus x equals 143. If you subtract 27 from both sides, you get x equals 116. Now again, if you did not know that, you can use your prior knowledge by finding this angle right here first and then adding them all up and subtracting from 180 because there's a triangle. Okay, number 8. If this is 60 and this is 60, that's 120. What does this other angle in the triangle have to be? 60 also. What kind of triangle is that? Equiangular. If this is 60 and these are a linear pair, this has to be equal to 120. Agree? So that means that 5x minus 10 is equal to 120. Well, what a coincidence that those are equal to 120. So even without finding the third angle, we could have said 5x minus 10 equals 120, because if you add these together, that's what you get. To solve, we're going to add 10 to both sides. And then we're going to divide by 5. And I believe you get x equals 26. Any questions on that?
Yeah, how would you only add up 2 of them, you don't add up all 3?
That's right. Why? Because these two angles are supplementary, and all 3 of these angles add up to 180, so essentially they're adding up to be the same thing.
So if you add up, if you put 180
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Okay, and then real quick before we go to lunch, I want to talk to you guys about what opposite means. Opposite just means across from. So if I gave you the triangle A, B, C, and I said, what side is across from angle B? What side would you say is across from angle B? What side? AC, right? So angle B is opposite or across from side AC? Because I could point to that, right? So what angle is opposite of side BC? What angle is opposite? We'll come back to it. What's that?
Did I give you the wrong homework?
So real quick before we get started on homework, I just wanted to review opposite is across from. So we said that angle B is opposite or across from side AC. So before you guys left for lunch, we were talking about side BC being across from what angle? Good, okay. Because here's side BC, and it is across from, you could draw an arrow to angle A. So they are across the triangle from each other. Now, side BC cannot be across from angle B because it's part of that segment, okay? It cannot be across from angle C because it's part of that segment. Any questions on that? I thought I heard somebody say I have a question.
Oh no, I was talking about
Okay. Any questions on what opposite means? Okie doke.